Welcome in, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well wherever you're watching from. Again, I do apologize for the voice. I'm still a bit under the weather, battling through the illness, but we're not going to stop because we have a huge breaking news story about Donald Trump halting an Israeli attack on Iranian facilities. It is a bombshell report. It is loaded with details. There's a lot to separate there and figure out. We're going to get into all of that and much more. And I have some theories, and I'm curious to see what you guys think about it as well. But before we do that, please make sure to like and subscribe, hit that bell so you know when a new video is coming, and comment with your thoughts about this incredible report. Israel wanted to bomb Iran. President Donald Trump stopped them. This is one of the most interesting things we've talked about in a long time. And now let's get it. So this report comes from the New York Times. It was released on April 16th. I'm now filming this on April 17th. And the New York Times lays out this incredible timeline where the Israelis were going to launch an attack as early as, I believe, May on Iranian nuclear facilities and other facilities in the country that support their attempt to get a nuke. And it is one of the most stunning reports for a lot of reasons. It goes into President Donald Trump stopping them, a split kind of in the White House and between the Israelis. And I have some questions of my own that we're going to get into here. But for right now, let me throw this up on the screen for you. I'm going to read some of this to you. Israel had planned to strike Iranian nuclear sites as soon as next month, but was waved off by President Trump in recent weeks in favor of negotiating a deal with Tehran to limit its nuclear program, according to administration officials and others briefed on the discussion. Mr. Trump made his decision after months of internal debate over whether to pursue diplomacy or support Israel in seeking to set back Iran's ability to build a bomb at a time when Iran has been weakened militarily and economically. The debate highlighted fault lines between historically hawkish American cabinet officials and other aides more skeptical that a military assault on Iran could destroy the country's nuclear ambitions and avoid a larger war. It resulted in rough consensus for now against military action, while Iran signaling a willingness to negotiate. Israeli officials had recently developed plans to attack Iranian nuclear sites in May. They were prepared to carry them out and at times were optimistic that the United States would sign off. The goal of the proposals, according to officials briefed on them, was to set back Tehran's ability to build a nuclear weapon by a year or more. Almost all of the plans, and this is a key part we're going to talk about later, almost all of the plans would have required U.S. help, not just to defend Israel from Iranian retaliation, but also to ensure that an Israeli attack was successful, making the United States a central part of the attack itself. For now, Mr. Trump has chosen diplomacy over military action. In his first term, he tore up the Iran nuclear deal negotiated by the Obama administration. But in his second term, eager to avoid being sucked into another war in the Middle East, he has opened negotiations with Tehran, giving it a deadline of just a few months to negotiate a deal over its nuclear program. Earlier this month, Mr. Trump informed Israel of his decision that the United States would not support an attack. He discussed it with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when Mr. Netanyahu visited Washington last week, using an Oval Office meeting to announce that the United States was beginning talks with Iran. In a statement delivered in Hebrew after the meeting, Mr. Netanyahu said an agreement with Iran would only work if it allowed all signers to go in, blow up the facilities, dismantle all equipment under American supervision with American execution. This article is based on conversations with multiple officials briefed on Israel's secret military plans and confidential discussions inside the Trump administration. Most of the people interviewed spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the military planning. So that is the background right there. Israel wanted to go in, but they knew they couldn't do it without the Americans. America had to play a central part, and President Trump told them, no, you're not going to do it. We're not going to help you do it. And there are actual details of the attack laid out here. So let's go ahead and get into that right now. So the details of the attack plan make it very clear that the Israelis were going to lean heavily on the United States to get this done. The New York Times further reports, initially at the behest of Mr. Netanyahu, senior Israeli officials updated their American counterparts on a plan that would have combined an Israeli commando raid on underground nuclear sites with a bombing campaign, an effort that the Israelis hoped would involve American aircraft. But Israeli military officials said the commando operation would not be ready until October. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Mr. Netanyahu wanted to carry it out more quickly. Israeli officials began shifting to a proposal for an extended bombing campaign that would have also required American assistance. So this is where things get really interesting. I'm going to go ahead and throw this up on the screen for you here. It says, but inside the Trump administration, some officials were becoming skeptical of the Israeli plan. In a meeting this month, one of the several discussions about the Israeli plan, Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, presented a new intelligence assessment that said the buildup of American weaponry could potentially spark a wider conflict with Iran that the United States did not want. A range of officials echoed Ms. Gabbard's concerns in the various meetings. Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Vice President J.D. Vance all voiced doubts about the attack. Even Mr. Waltz, frequently one of the most hawkish voices on Iran, was skeptical that Israel's plan could succeed without substantial American assistance. The recent meetings came shortly after the Iranians said that they were open to indirect talks, communications through an intermediary. In March, Mr. Trump sent a letter offering direct talks with Iran, an overture that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, had appeared to reject. But on March 28th, a senior Iranian official sent a letter back signaling openness to indirect talks. So it goes on a little further. The Trump administration has sent mixed signals about what kind of deal it wants and what the consequences for Iran would be if it failed to agree. In one discussion, Mr. Vance, with support of others, argued that Mr. Trump had a unique opportunity to make a deal. If the talks failed, Mr. Trump could then support an Israeli attack, Mr. Vance said, according to administration officials. During a visit to Israel earlier this month, General Kirilla told officials that the White House wanted to put the plan to attack the nuclear facilities on hold. So this really boils down to the Israelis want to do this, the United States does not want to do this, and the Israeli plan relies heavily on the Americans to get this done. And I have some quotes that I pulled that I'm going to read from my phone that are pretty much sum up how much the Israelis need the U.S. to do this. And then we're going to get into a little bit of would this plan have worked or not. Let's go ahead and do that right now. So these are some quotes I'm reading off my phone now that were in the piece that to me perfectly sum up that the Israelis cannot do this without the United States. Again, some of these will be repeated, but there are some new ones in here. Almost all the plans would have required U.S. help, not just to defend Israel from Iranian retaliation, but also to ensure that an Israeli attack was successful, making the United States a central part of the attack itself. Initially, at the behest of Mr. Netanyahu, senior Israeli officials updated their American counterparts on a plan that would have combined an Israeli commando raid on underground nuclear sites with a bombing campaign, an effort that the Israelis hoped would involve American aircraft. To be successful, Israeli officials wanted American planes to conduct airstrikes, protecting the commando teams on the ground. An Israeli attack on nuclear sites would prompt a new Iranian missile barrage against Israel that would require American assistance to rebuff. So their whole plan, the Israelis' entire plan, hinged on the United States being the backbone of this attack on the Iranian facilities. And there's been some interesting debate over why was this leaked, who's the leak pointed at. Some people argued this leak is pointed at the Iranians to show that the Israelis might go in alone. I actually read that totally different. I read this leak is pointed at the Israelis because of the framing of it is that this operation requires the U.S. to do it, and thus the Israelis cannot do it alone. And if you wanted to terrify the Iranians, you would frame it that the Israelis could do it alone, and President Trump had to beg, plead, and restrain them not to. But that's not what the report says. The report from the New York Times makes it clear that the operation could only be successful with American aircraft doing essentially the legwork of the bombings. We've talked about that at length. The only bomb capable of taking out the Iranian facilities is the GBU-57, which is a 30,000-pound bunker buster that can be carried by the B-2 stealth aircraft, which is a long-range stealth bomber, of course. The Israelis do not have, this is just a fact, do not have the planes to carry bunker-busting bombs. They have F-35s, which are a great aircraft, a great stealth aircraft, can't even come close to carrying the kind of bombs you would need in order to take out underground facilities. That leads me to the commando part of this operation. I struggle to understand how a commando raid on a deep underground facility is going to take it out. This is not the James Bond movie GoldenEye at the beginning when James Bond sneaks in to the Russian facility and they're going to plant some explosives. You're talking about facilities guarded by hundreds, if not thousands, of ground troops. If you're going to send in commando teams, you have to send in thousands of men while bombing the sites. So you're talking about conducting a commando raid while the site at the surface, I guess, is being bombed, and they would then face intense ground combat in an underground facility that certainly has walls, doors that can seal off, just like any facility you would see in any other country with underground capabilities. For all those reasons, I am skeptical that any Israeli plan going in alone is clearly not going to work. They don't have the planes, they don't have the bombs, and as the New York Times laid out, they require significant American assistance in order to hit Iran. Now, can they fly F-35s into Iran and blow up anti-aircraft sites, early warning detection sites? Absolutely, no question about that. They've done it before. The F-35 is more than capable of doing that. They do not have the capabilities, and this is just a fact, to go in with the equipment and tools you need to blow up underground facilities. That is the fact of the matter. And I think at this point, you're not going to see the Israelis do anything because, as the New York Times reported, the Trump administration is choosing to go with diplomacy first. Now, we have a bunch of B-2 stealth bombers staged out at Diego Garcia. If we need those bombers, I have no doubt that they will be put to use, and those bombers can get that job done. Does that mean we should do it? That's a debate for way above my pay grade. But as I've argued at all times when we're discussing a potential attack on Iran, as the New York Times laid out, the stakes are incredibly high. Iran has the capabilities to retaliate with ballistic missiles, rockets, drones. It is what it is. They're gonna unleash what they have, and as the New York Times pointed out, then the Israelis are banking on America to protect them. We'd also have to protect the Saudi oil production because that would be a prime target. And if that gets wiped out, then the Saudis are going to retaliate. And now you're on an escalation ladder that rapidly rises. It's a fascinating report. It, to me, indicates that it was leaked, likely targeting Israel, giving the framing, because the framing makes it clear that Israel is dependent on America to do this. If they wanted to terrify the Iranians, they would frame it as that they were going to do it alone and then Trump stopped them. But that is not the framing of the situation. All in all, it's a very complex situation. It's fascinating to think how close we might actually be or how close the Israelis are to doing it. I don't know what's going to happen. It seems like diplomacy right now with Steve Witkoff and negotiations going on in Oman seem to be bearing some level of fruit. The Israelis are not going to do this alone. That's a guarantee you can take to the bank because they simply cannot. They might want to, but they do not have the tools to do it, and we're not going to give them B-2 stealth bombers to do it. That's another fact. Whether you like it or not, it is a fact. But I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the Israeli plan, the United States refusing to go with it, the split in the White House with the Israelis, with Vance, Hegseth, Gabbard, Susie Wiles being against it. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell. And as always, I'll see y'all next time.